What is up, everyone? The kickoff of the NFL regular season is just 23 days away, and fantasy football drafts are firing up everywhere. Today, we're diving into a 10-team, 1 QB PPR mock draft with 2 bench slots in the 10 rounds to see where the values lie, the sleepers are hiding, and where the trap players are on episode 23 of Mock Draft Monday. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Mock Draft Monday. I am, of course, your host, Nate Polvogt, joined by my host with the most, Mr. Mike Vadala, and our luscious, locked, and soon-to-be betrothed, Cam White. Guys, this is your last time on the show before you head off on Cam's bachelor party. We were just talking about it before the show. It sounds like it's going to be a blast, man. So this is your last mock draft before you go. Is there anything that you're looking at in this draft? It's 10 team. It's 1 quarterback. There's only 8 starting slots. Very basic. Is there anything you're expecting to be a little bit different than some of these other drafts we've done?
Yeah, I think we've seen some injuries pop up in this past week. You know, we've got like CMC has like tightness, whatever that means. So I'm curious what's going to happen as like people are reacting to the injury news. I know that like I was very heavily targeting CMC in all of these mocks we've been doing, but now I'm not sure what tightness necessarily means. We know a couple of years back when the 49ers were a little quiet in CMC's injury status that he didn't end up playing the whole year. So just a little nervous about this injury, and I'm going to see like what else we do in this draft today.
Yeah, I mean, CMC is always going to be an injury worry, isn't he? Like, it's just a thing. But when he plays full seasons, he could be RB1, which is something we talked about, Mike, on our AMA with a couple people yesterday on Reddit is, yeah, it's risky to draft CMC. Now we're hearing about the injury and the tightness, and I'm still drafting him. Because if he plays, I mean, he's a league-winning type asset. Mike, is there anything that you're looking at in this draft or you're curious to see if it happens, if it doesn't happen?
Right now, I'm at that point in the season where I have done hundreds and hundreds of drafts. We've been mock drafting on this show since April. But beyond that, I'm doing best ball. I'm in a bunch of dynasty leagues. We did a bunch of startups this year, a bunch of rookie drafts. I've done some redraft this year already. So I am in my flow state, and I am just ready to let all the value fall to me. And I'm ready to have a good time here.
I love it. I want to pop this comment in the chat. We got Frank in the chat saying Cam looking slim after doing those Kyler runs. Referencing the video, I'm sure you probably saw it on YouTube. Cam running the cupcakes. He lost his bet on the Trade Addicts show with Frank. So check that out on our YouTube. It's on our shorts. All right, folks, we want to get into this draft. But first, I want to remind you, this is the last week to sign up for Polly's playoff to benefit a walk to end Alzheimer's and the Alzheimer's Association. You can go to optimusfantasy.com/Polly's-playoff. Sign up to play with us. Any donation helps in the drive to end Alzheimer's, folks. All right, before we get into this draft, I do want to walk through the settings. This is, like we said, it is a 1 QB, 10-team PPR. We're going 10 rounds. We are rostering 1 quarterback, 2 apiece of running back, wide receiver, and a wide receiver, running back, tight end flex, 1 tight end, and we will be drafting 2 bench spots in this one to kind of see what some of those values in a shorter league like this is going to be. And if you didn't get enough and you want to mock draft some more, head on over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. Get a free week with the code YT26, and you can mock to your heart's content. You can run 40 drafts in a day if you want. It's going to show you where those values lie, where players are landing at ADP, and who you should be picking in your drafts. Again, YT26 for a free week. And now we're going to get into the draft, gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and fire this up. We've got Big James here with the first pick. Again, this is going to be a shallower league, but with 10 teams, you're going to see very deep starting lineups. What is your strategy in a draft like this, Cam?
Yeah, my strategy is really just I'm going to try to hammer these running backs early. I feel like they give you a really high floor, and then you also have a high ceiling with the top end running backs too. When we look at the wide receivers, there's just so many good wide receivers. When we're talking about like the guys that are back end wide receiver 2s all the way through like high end wide receiver 4s, there's just so much variance in their output that I feel pretty good grabbing them later in this draft and just focusing on the running backs early if they're falling to me.
Well, of course, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs did not fall. They went 1-2, followed by Ja'Marr Chase at 103. Then, Mike, you took Puka Nacua at 104. I've heard some chatter. People are nervous about Puka Nacua in this offense, afraid there isn't going to be the volume for him. You don't seem to feel that way.
I definitely don't think volume is going to be a problem. I think he might have a little bit of a groin that he's dealing with right now. But I think this is Puka Nacua. No matter what he's dealing with, he's played through a lot of it. Very tough player. And on top of that, yeah, I think the volume is going to be insane for Puka, as it was last year. It's kind of one of those, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. This guy is the heartbeat of that offense. And they're going to be going to him a lot.
Yeah, well, this is a team that almost made the Super Bowl, Cam. With Puka Nacua, is his ceiling wide receiver 1 again this year?
Yeah, it's absolutely wide receiver 1 again this year. They didn't do anything else in the wide receiver room. Sure, they added another tight end in the draft, but he's just an absolute freak out there. If you're following me on Blue Sky, you've probably seen some of the highlights I've been posting of Puka, and he's just an absolute stud. So I feel like if you're choosing between him and Ja'Marr Chase, for me personally, I just want to feel good about the guys I'm drafting, so I'm taking Chase. But you really can't go wrong between the two.
Now, Cam, you went CMC here with that 5th pick, followed by Jonathan Taylor at 106, and I went CeeDee Lamb at 107. We already kind of talked about the Christian McCaffrey issues, the worry about injury, so we won't go over that again. Jonathan Taylor, though, as the RB4, which is where I have him in my rankings. Mike, do you think that that's about where he should land this season and where he should be going in drafts, or is he too high? Is he too low?
I'm expecting this Colts offense to regress. They were on fire through 8 weeks last year, and I just don't see that repeating. Now, Taylor still is going to be a great pick in the 1st or 2nd round, absolutely. But I'm starting to lean more towards players like a James Cook, who I think that offense has a better potential to explode this year. And obviously, Cook led the league in rushing last year as well. So, this guy is, got that RB1 potential overall. There's talk the Bills are going to get into a little bit more running back usage in the pass game this year as well, or like what I did with my pick and go with like a Puka Nacua, JSN. I probably would have preferred over Taylor also, just with expecting that regression and with that high ceiling that those top 3 receivers give you, that I feel is pretty safe.
Now, Cam, I want to ask you this about Jonathan Taylor, and this is the thing that makes me want to draft more of him and why I've got him higher up is I don't think this is a team that can throw the ball a lot this season, and if they do, Daniel Jones is going to have to get the ball out quick. He's coming back from an Achilles tear. This is no joke. So, with that, do you think just on volume, even if this offense does regress, that Jonathan Taylor is still a top 4 running back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's locked in as a guy that's probably going to see 300 touches this year. You called that Daniel Jones is coming back from that Achilles. He looks pretty good in training camp so far. I remember the very first day training camp opened, there was a clip I posted of him taking a bootleg out for like a 7-yard gain. But still, I'm just not entirely certain what it's going to look like when they're out there to the start of the season. Alec Pierce is still not practicing. So his number 1 target at wide receiver is not healthy. I know Josh Downs was dealing with a little bit of a groin injury. Tyler Warren is probably going to get fed alongside Jonathan Taylor. But if you want to win football games, they're going to have to control the pace. They're not going to be able to be the fiery offense we saw last year. Probably not until like mid-season when everybody's shaping back into form.
And that's kind of where I'm at with it too. So I don't hate the pick, but Mike, I understand your trepidation as well. All right, after that, we did have the CeeDee Lamb pick. I just think this offense is going to take off. They're going to have to throw the ball a ton. I don't think Dallas is going to win a lot of games, but their defense is atrocious. CeeDee Lamb to me is a guy who's going to see 150 plus targets, in my opinion. After that, we've got Jaxon Smith-Njigba at 108, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 109. Then on the turn, we had James Cook at 110, Drake London at 2-1, Ken Walker off the board at 2-2, followed by Ashton Jaunty, Devon Achane, and then Saquon Barkley at 2-5. With Devon Achane, did get auto-picked. I had him in my queue. He was going to be my pick anyway. I've been trying to do that during these shows, since we get talking so much. With Devon Achane, nothing is really exciting about this Miami offense, but he kind of is. Cam, is there a chance where he could be a top 5 back this season?
Yeah, I mean, he might lead the Dolphins in targets and rush attempts this season. We had a interview with Jeff Hafley. Well, not us personally, but there was an interview with Jeff Hafley, and he mentioned that Achane could see 40 to 45 carries I think it might have been touches, but like it was a joke. It wasn't real. He was just kind of joking around about the fact that Achan's just a phenomenal player and he doesn't want to come off the field. But I think there's a real chance that the Dolphins offense is a little bit better than we think. Malik Willis looks pretty good. Caleb Douglas looks like a standout rookie wide receiver for them. And I just feel like there's the opportunity for Etienne to have the similar level of volume he had last year, and he still looks extremely explosive. And that offensive line actually looks a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The first week of the preseason, they just were opening up big holes for the running backs. The tight end that they brought in, Will Kasmerick, was looking really good, blocking on the edge and being able to seal guys to create rushing lanes for Etienne. So I'm actually kind of excited about him. And if you weren't going to take him right there, and Saquon Barkley was already gone, Etienne was going to be my next pick.
Yeah, there isn't a lot to be excited about in this offense. Darren Waller was kind of the one who was like, I kind of hope he resigns. It sounds like a really good fit with Malik Willis. He didn't. And outside of Etienne, Malik Willis is a good late round flyer. I'm sure we'll end up talking about him at some point during this draft. All right, after the Etienne pick, we have Ashton Jeanty, Ken Walker, Drake London, Derrick Henry at 301. Sorry. Brock Bowers at 302, Malik Neighbors at 3-3, Josh Allen at 3-4, then Kyren Williams off the board at 3-5. All right, Mike, you took the first quarterback off of the board, Josh Allen, all the way to the third round. That seems like kind of a steal, even in this format, given the point output we know he can get.
Yeah, I would say where it was for me is he was kind of a smash there. I wasn't seeing any like surefire top talent on the board there. It's a lot of running backs and wide receivers here that we feel like pretty good about, but we're not really sure these guys are going to get to that high level of play. Right. Whereas Josh Allen, we know what this guy does. He does nothing else but finish QB1, running touchdowns. He's just a beast. And now I'm stacking up 3 players that are going to be on productive offenses. I've got Nacua with the Rams, Brown with the Bengals, and now we've got Josh Allen. So kind of a little strategy I'm putting together here. Not necessarily going to fully commit to that for the entire draft, but that's definitely something I like to do is target those players on good offenses.
Absolutely. Kyren Williams, Kim. A lot of people feel like he's going to regress this year. I think you, me, and Dave Stewart might be the only two who don't think he will.
Yeah, I don't understand necessarily why he would regress. They just paid him like massive RB1 money. So they're going to use him. They're going to run until the wheels fall off. He's averaging like 300 touches a season over his past 3 years. So I'm really excited for Kyren Williams. I know Blake Corum's there, and he may see like 200, 220 total touches, but they're going to run Kyren Williams, and this defense is really scary. So if they get a big lead and they want to preserve Matthew Stafford, don't allow him to take any hits by dropping him back, we just know that they're going to hand the ball off, and this offense is going to see a lot of scoring opportunities too. So I think there's enough volume there for both Kyren Williams and Blake Corum to have solid seasons. I think Kyron's going to have another RB1 season. Maybe he finishes like 9 or 12, somewhere in that range. And then Corum probably is going to be in that like back end RB2 range where he just has this upside every week where it's tough to know when you're going to start him, but he could have a touchdown and 60 yards, no problem. So I'm really not worried about Kyren Williams. I think if we're excited about the Rams offense in general, then we should be excited about their number 1 running back.
I completely agree. And I don't buy into the Blake Corum's going to really like eat into his work enough to affect him in fantasy. Mike, are you feeling the same way about Kyren Williams?
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily, you know what, I am going to take a stand here. I think that I do expect a little bit more regression for Kyren Williams. I think that they do want to get Blake Corum more involved. Now, I don't think it's going to be like a drastic fall off, but I do expect him to get a few less touches. And then on top of that, obviously they made major improvements to that defensive line. So I think there's a higher chance that they do like, when they salt away the games, I think they trust Corum to do that. Where, yes, Williams could, but like when you're up by 15, in the fourth quarter, I think those are going to be Blake Corum's touches. And Williams will still get out there and get the majority of the like early game work or when games are close. But I don't think there's going to be that many close games with the Rams. And that just so kind of like the Rams not necessarily needing to wear out their best players, Corum being a pretty solid running back on his own, those kind of combined for just a little downtick in Kyron's production for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We got this comment in the chat from Shane Barrett. He is drafting his Polly's playoff. The founder. Shane, thank you for joining us today. Blake Corum is overhyped and Kyron is overhated. I do think there's a little bit too much hype on Corum. But again, we're going to see what happens this season. This is, again, a team I don't think they're going to be down very often. I think they're going to be able to run the ball when they want. All right, after that Kyron Williams pick, we had Trey McBride off the board at 306, followed by T. Higgins at 37, Jeremiah Love at 308, George Pickens at 39, Chris Olave at 310, and then Lamar Jackson at 4-1 on the turn, followed by Tet McMillan, Lad McConkey, Amika Egbuka, Zay Flowers, and Cam went with Javonte Williams, and Mike, you went with Rashee Rice. Javonte Williams, Cam, in an offense is probably going to throw the ball a lot. They're still going to have to run, and we saw how efficient Javonte Williams was last season. Do you think he's going to maybe have a bigger season fantasy-wise this year than he did last year in this offense?
I think we're probably just going to expect roughly the same, honestly, which is going to be like, a back end RB1 finish. The reason I'm going so running back heavy, and I talked about it at the start, is they just give us a really high weekly floor where I know that he's going to see like 15 to 20 touches every week. So when I'm comparing him to some of these other guys, I was looking at Colston Loveland. I would have taken Zay Flowers, but Carl in our draft is really sharp and knew to take him. But I'm just looking for these guys that are going to be safe picks for me, and then I'm going to smash some of these wide receivers in a little bit here. And Javonte Williams, there's nobody else there to steal touches away from him. So I just feel really comfortable taking, again, another running back in a high-powered offense.
So wait a minute. Are you telling me that I'm never going to get Jaden Blue season, Cam?
Well, some people on Reddit would believe that it's Phil Maffa season if Javonte Williams goes down. So, I mean, it's just really tough to get excited about either of those guys. If you're going to be taking some of these running backs after Javonte Williams comes off the board, it's like you're dealing with Cam Scatterbu, which who knows what his injury situation is. HN, it's coming out from New Orleans, that he's probably going to be splitting more carries and touches with Kamara than we thought. So for me, I feel like he's one of the last bona fide like RB1s available on the board.
And he really genuinely is. All right, past that Javonte Williams pick, we had Rashee Rice again at 4-7 from Mike, then Devontae Smith at 408, Bucky Irving at 4-9. Then on the turn, we had Breece Hall at 4-10, Colston Loveland at 5-1, followed by Jalen Waddle at 5-02, Tyler Warren at 5-03. Then, Mike, you went Josh Jacobs at 5-04. We have Cam going Luther Burden at 5-05. Josh Jacobs, again, this is a situation, Mike, where he really is the only back that's viable in this backfield. How many touches are you expecting from him this season in Green Bay?
Yeah, I think as long as, the injury stuff and the suspension clears up, which I don't think he'll be just suspended this year, but now he's apparently dealing with something. So as long as he's healthy the full season, I would expect like 300 touches for Josh Jacobs. I think they're just ground and pound. They've always kind of wanted to be that type of a team, despite having with mixing in some explosive passing plays. But that offense ran through Josh Jacobs last year. As long as they can keep on gaining 4 yards every time, they're going to do it. He gets those touchdowns. So I just think that a bona fide RB1 with no real serious competition in the backfield this late in the draft feels good for my second running back.
Yeah, I do not hate it at all. Cam, Luther Burden ahead of Rome Odunze. Do you think that's how this offense shakes out this season in Chicago?
I do think so. I think we're going to see Burden with more of these underneath looks. I know he's picked up a little bit of an injury early in camp, but prior to that, it was just, wheels up for Luther Burden coming out of all the beat reporters. So I'm really excited for him. I think this offense is going to extend. We saw him explode at the end of last season. So I feel like this is right around the spot that I would feel comfortable taking Burden. I would even take him a little bit earlier, up around like where Devonta Smith went, if I really want to get a piece of this Chicago Bears offense, which I think is set to have a really solid fantasy year.
Yeah, someone in this offense I've been ending up with a little bit later, DeAndre Swift, which isn't someone I generally love to draft, but it's just kind of the way it's fallen. All right, after that Burden pick
news that came out too, that Monungai picked up an injury. He's got a knee injury now, so Swift is going to be a big value.
Can we ban injuries in camp, please? God, it's too much.
Are all of these injuries real, guys? Like, we know that they're not all real. Like, some of them are definitely real, but like that's the thing. Whoever is going to come out winning drafts right now is going to be whoever's right on, well, I don't think this player is really injured. And it's kind of like, I feel like this is the time of year where like the veterans of the league, they kind of just shut him down. And it's like, oh, he has a groin injury, but it's really just like, we're bubble wrapping this dude for the season. Like, we know he's ready.
Yep.
Time to kind of get him some rest. Now, that's the thing. Then you're going to take a bet on some of these guys that then they're really hurt and you end up getting screwed. But I think that's definitely part of the narrative that's worth noting.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. All right, we got a couple questions in the chat here. Well, this one, we kind of already answered this, Mr. Greg Kellogg. How many games is Jacobs going to miss due to suspension? It's not sounding like he's going to miss any. All right, Cam, Zay Flowers or Garrett Wilson? In a vacuum,
man.
who are you picking?
I love me some Zay Flowers, honestly. But that's really tough. I think the breaker for me is Garrett Wilson is catching passes from Geno Smith or Cade Klubnik, where you're getting it from Lamar Jackson if you're Zay Flowers, and they just paid him. So I like both of the players. If we're talking dynasty, they're like dead even for me. But in redraft, which is what we're doing today, it's Zay Flowers, but just by a hair.
Yeah, I'm Zay Flowers by a hair because I don't trust the Jets offense. Mike, where are you at on this one?
Lockstep, baby. It was Zay Flowers immediately for me. I think, and exactly why Cam said, just being on the Ravens, you're in a much healthier environment to score than being on the Jets. I love Garrett Wilson, though. Great player. Just gotta hope that Geno can get it to him.
Did you see he made in training camp the other day?
No.
It was insane. It was just a casual, like, one-hander behind his head. This guy is just an absolute freak. And if this Jets offense can turn it around, he is going to be a massive value. But, like, I don't know. Do we trust Geno? I like him personally, but I don't like him over Lamar Jackson throwing the ball to Zay Flowers.
Yeah, no. Look, Geno Smith could be really good for this offense. I think there's a reality in which that happens, but I'm not sitting here betting on it. It's just not going to happen. All right, speaking of Garrett Wilson, we had Garrett Wilson off the board at 506, followed by my taking a bet that Tucker Cracked is going to be 100% healthy and taking him at 507, followed by Drake May at 508, Harold Fannin at 509. Then on the turn, we have Quinshawn Judkins and DJ Moore at 6'1". Then Trevion Henderson, Devontae Adams, David Montgomery at 6'4", followed by Travis Etienne at 6'5". Then Cam Scadaboo, Terry McLaurin, and DeAndre Swift at 6'8". Cam, you winced when we brought up Scadaboo's name, but then you took him.
He fell so far, I just couldn't pass him up. And I can have a great team name of like Cam Squared. But I like what the Giants did. So you bring in Harbaugh, and with him comes Pat Ricard, who's, he's going to be the fullback of this offense. He's an honorary lineman, and I just think he's going to be able to open up the holes for Scadabo to run through. And then later in this draft, you can always handcuff a guy like this with Tyrone Tracy, where like outside of Tracy, there's not another guy that's going to challenge for the RB2 role on this team. So I kind of like getting Scadabo here and then just taking Tracy late towards the end of this draft, which is, if we're going past 10 rounds, I'm probably getting him in round like 11 or 12. Yeah. I don't think we're going to make it that far today. But, and Mike snipes me with Kyle Pitts. Good pick, buddy. I was waiting for that one on the turn.
Love to see it.
But I really like
walk these guys through that Pitts pick real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, Cam. So basically, I was targeting Pitts basically like all the way back when right after I took Jacobs. I knew I was like looking around at the board, and Pitts was the last tight end that I'm really a fan of. And I'm looking at the teams to my left here, Jameson, Polly's Playoff, and Sadakoy Steele. And they already all had their tight ends. So coming back around here, I knew I had to take McLaurin first because obviously I don't think these three teams are taking another tight end. So this is kind of like beginner stuff. So if you guys are experienced drafters, bear with me. But you just look around at the teams who they've drafted already. If these guys already have their top tight ends, then I'm going to feel good about waiting on Kyle Pitts as it comes back around the turn there. Then I can snipe Cam.
All right, well, let's get caught up here.
On the Pitts stuff too. I was doing our deep dives for the tea leaf readings, and I was looking into the tight end volume in Kevin Stefanski offenses. And if you go back to like 2021, the number one tight end in his offense averaged like 100 targets per year. So we can pretty much like pencil that in for Pitts. We saw how they used him in the preseason game. They got him some underneath work. So I love Kyle Pitts at the value he's at right now. I think that is a smash, Mike.
Oh, it is absolutely a smash, 100%. I would have taken him here had that not all happened. Or had you not taken him. Sorry. All right, let's get caught up here. You got me Twitter pated because I wanted Kyle Pitts so bad, Mike. Way to ruin my day. All right, after that Scatabo pick, we've got Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Swift, then Romo Dunze finally off the board at 609, followed by Mike Evans at 610, Christian Watson at 701 on the turn, Carnell Tate at 7-2, Jameson Williams at 7-3, of course, Kyle Pitts at 7-4, Joe Burrow at 7-5, Darian Price at 7-6, Bashal Tutin is at 7-7, and then we've got Sam Laporta off the board at 708, and Jonathan Brooks, Jonathan with an O in Carolina, coming off the board at 7-9. Cam, how are you feeling about Jonathan Brooks? We haven't really seen him play in the NFL. This is his third season. Are you concerned?
I mean, I'm not concerned. I think the talent's there, but I think we're reaching pretty far on a guy that's definitely going to be in a committee. I like Jonathan Brooks as a prospect, but I think he's more of a guy that I feel comfortable taking 2 rounds later than where he just went. But if he does end up winning that backfield, we saw Hubbard lose the backfield to Dowdle last year. So there's a chance that he does become the RB1 in that offense, but I think it's an RB1 where you're still in like a 55-45 split situation. Yeah. So when I'm looking at this roster, I see he's got Ken Walker, he's got Travion Henderson. So he does need the running back depth, and he's just taking that swing that maybe one of these guys does end up winning their backfield. And if Brooks does hit and this Carolina Panthers offense really turns it on in the 4th year and being in Dave Canales' system, then yeah, that could be a fantastic pick, and you're drafting him at value. I just feel like for me, I'd probably be waiting a little bit longer on him. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm going heavy running back to start just to make sure I lock up these guys that are going to be starting running backs, and I never have to consider who am I going to play at running back because I have so many solid running backs.
Well, see, and I feel like with my roster, that's where I'm at. I've got Achane and Montgomery. Take a little risk on Tutin, but I think that if he does end up being the overall RB1 who gets the majority of the carries there, that could be really valuable at some point as a flex play, a plug-in on a bye week, something like that. So, all right, now we've got on the turn here, Brian Thomas at 7-10, Ramondre Stevenson at 8-1. So, Mike, I want to ask you this, because we've heard a lot that it still sounds like Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the primary back. Travion Henderson is going to get plenty of work, but in those like short yardage situations, goal line, it's still going to be Stevenson. Yet we saw Travion Henderson come off the board before Stevenson in this draft. Does that make sense to you? Do you think there's maybe more upside in even the lessened role that Travion Henderson is going to have?
I think Henderson was a reach, but he is the Patriots back that I prefer. I'd rather have Henderson than Stevenson. Just I'm wanting a guy who can be a home run, who's got ceiling. And then, I think if Travion Henderson gets hurt, how many more points a game is Ramondre Stevenson getting? But if Ramondre Stevenson gets hurt, we're looking at Henderson potentially being like a 20 points per game guy. We saw last year that it just takes one play for this guy to be meaningful in your fantasy lineups. So even getting half the touches this year, I already like him to be about the same points per game as Stevenson. But I think on that contingent upside of one of them going down, you're way better off with Henderson if Stevenson gets hurt than the latter, the vice versa.
Yep. I just wouldn't reach on Henderson that early. Cam, what about you?
I like Henderson. We've heard some reports coming out of camp that he still needs to work on his pass protection. He still needs to learn how to read the line, set up his runs. So I'm a little bit lower on Henderson. I think he's fine. He's a great upside pick. He can win your week on just one rush attempt. So I'm a little bit lower, but I'm about to make a pick of Parker Washington, who I've been kind of pumping the brakes on Parker Washington, just feeling like there's a lot of other wide receivers there. But all training camp and all offseason, we've just been hearing fantastic Parker Washington news. It sounds like he's the number one wide receiver there. Next year, I'm not sure what's going to happen with him because his contract's going to be up and the Jaguars are in a tough cap situation. But I do feel like they just use him underneath constantly. And we're probably going to see a guy that gets like 120 to 140 targets.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. There's too much of an if for me. If Brian Thomas Jr. breaks out, if Jacoby Myers ends up getting a bigger share than we may think he's going to get. So, but I get it. And in these kinds of drafts, man, no risk, no reward, right? You've got to reach on some guys. You've got to go after guys that you like, guys that you want. I reached on Dak Prescott at 8-4. I probably could have waited another round to get him, but I didn't want to take the risk because I wanted to stack him with CD, and that's been my plan since the first round. So sometimes you have to do that in drafts. You have to go screw the value, get your player. All right. At 8-2 after that Stevenson pick, we had DK Metcalf, followed by Marvin Harrison Jr., Dak Prescott, as I mentioned, at 8-4. Cortland Sutton at 8-5. The pick we just talked about for Cam Parker Washington at 8-6. Alec Pierce at 8-7. Jordan Tyson at 8-8. Mike, are you confident that Alec Pierce is A, going to come back healthy to start the season, and B, that he will be the alpha receiver in this offense at Indy?
Okay, so to answer your first question, I am not that confident that he's healthy to start the season. At this point in my draft, I feel really strong with Nacua, Rice, and McLaurin as wide receivers. And I'm kind of what I was debating through as looking through these other guys is kind of like who has the chance where if they hit, they are going to push my team kind of over the edge. I think Alec Pierce has that kind of potential. Obviously, they gave him big money. Now, we don't know if he got an injection this summer or not now. Initially, it was reported by some people that he did. Then now that he didn't, we don't know. I think even if he had, he was projected to be back this season within a few weeks of the beginning of the season. So I'm kind of looking at it as like either way, when he comes back, I think he is the clear wide receiver one in this offense. Now, that could be like a 1A, 1B with Tyler Warren. And obviously, they're going to flow through Jonathan Taylor as well. But again, just kind of going for that upside of like, we know that Alec Pierce has been one of the most efficient per target wide receivers in the NFL. I think he can continue that. I think he's got more than just like deep threat to his game. He can really make the contested catches. He can run really all the routes that you ask him to run. And they paid him. They want to make this guy a feature of their offense. So big fan of Alec Pierce. And then I'm going to go here with Chris Godwin, just kind of playing for a little bit more of that ceiling with the Egbuka injury news that we're hearing. And just also I've been kind of higher on Godwin even before that. I think he's fully back from the injury 2 years ago and hopefully should be more like his old self this year.
Yeah, my only concern with Godwin is that Egbuka seems to really be the alpha in this offense. Now, that said, Chris Godwin is a very good receiver. This could be like a Godwin-Evans situation where they both eat. And I think that right now where Chris Godwin is going in drafts, he's a value. And if it makes sense to grab him, you should be grabbing him. All right, after that Alec Pierce and Jordan Tyson picks, we had Michael Wilson at 8-9, Jayden Daniels at 8-10, Jaylen Warren at 9-1, followed by Rico Dowdle at 9-02, then Tony Pollard, Chris Godwin, as we discussed, Isaiah Likely off the board to Cam at 9-05, then Jaden Reed at 9-6, and now I am up. Cam, let's talk about this Isaiah Likely pick here. You think he's going to be involved in the offense in more than just in a big way, you think?
Yeah, they paid him to be he's the fourth highest paid tight end. Harbaugh went out and made sure they brought him along over into the Giants with him. So after Malik Neighbors, I don't think there's necessarily a concrete number 2 target in this offense. So I'm a little worried about my team because I do have 2 Giants players and I'm not that high on the Giants. But when I'm looking at the tight ends that are available on the board, knowing I need a tight end, I just didn't feel confident in many of the other guys having the upside that Isaiah Likely potentially possesses, where we could see 120, 140 targets head Likely's way, especially with Neighbors not being 100% to start the year. They might just funnel targets to him as their big slot in the offense. So when I'm thinking about what happened this offseason and how they've treated Likely so far, I'm really excited for his fantasy potential. He was going a lot later, so it does look like a reach, but I think this is closer to where he finishes.
I don't think it's a reach. If you look at the rest of this depth chart receiver wise, below neighbors, you've got Darius Slayton, who's getting up there in age. He's 29. Darnell Mooney, who's been around. Calvin Austin, who's been around. You've got the rookie Malachi Fields. For some reason, they brought in Odell Beckham to run it back. And Juju Smith-Schuster and Braxton Berrios. Like, yeah, Isaiah Likely's a better receiver than all of these guys. It's not even close. All right, after the Jayden Reed pick, I went with Wan'Dale Robinson in Tennessee, 140 plus targets a season the last 2 seasons, and he's in an offense now where he's up against Calvin Ridley and rookie Carnell Tate, so I think we're going to see just as much volume for him as a wide receiver too. Then we've got RJ Harvey, Blake Corum to Josh Downs at 9-10, followed by Dalton Kincaid at 10-1, Caleb Williams off the board at 10-2, Chuba Hubbard at 10-3. I'm up with the 10-4 pick. Caleb Williams in the 10th round. Mike, that's ridiculous, is it not?
You know, 1 QB, it's like one of these guys has to fall, right? So, I mean, you know, I'm okay with it in 1 QB. In Superflex, that would make me, you know how I feel about Caleb Williams. So, I think that's a great pick. I think that's a great pick, but it's like, Dak, you made the Dak Prescott pick. That was a great pick. Joe Burrow was a great pick in the 7th at camp. So, like, it's kind of tough in 1 QB to get too upset. He's still in the top 10. I can accept it. You know, Dynasty.
Yeah.
You know, he's QB1.
Oh, I know. We're all aware, Mike. We're all aware. Yeah, look, if you can get Caleb Williams in the 10th round of a league where you're only rostering starting 8 players as your QB1, that's insane value. I would have thought he would have come off the board somewhere in the 6th or 7th round. I've got him as my QB4 this season. I think he's going to be phenomenal in that Bears offense, and I don't think we're high enough on him right now. All right, after the Caleb Williams and the Chuba Hubbard picks, I went J.K. Dobbins at 10-04, Justin Herbert's off the board at 10-5, and I knew one of you two was going to do this. Cam just took Cyrus. I know you had to. Cyrus Allen, the hot topic wide receiver in Kansas City, a guy that, Cam, you and I interviewed him twice in Mobile. We watched him practice every day. Neither one of us are surprised by all of the press he's getting. Why should everyone else maybe consider this as a good flyer pick in your late rounds of drafts?
I see Mike took Jamari Taylor right after, so I'm excited for
it.
this Jamari Taylor buzz. But I reached heavily on Cyrus Allen just to make sure we talk about him. When you're getting to the end of your drafts, we're talking about a guy that has already solidified himself running with the ones. He's the wide receiver 3 technically right now for this team. Xavier Worthy is struggling with a shoulder injury. He had a shoulder injury that happened in week 1 of the 2025 season that plagued him all year long. And now it sounds like that's flaring back up again. So he could potentially see himself walk into like the wide receiver 2 role of the Patrick Mahomes offense. And you're able to get him right now basically for free at the end of drafts. I'm sure his ADP is going to be trending up as your leagues get a little bit sharper. But just every single practice, I am finding highlights of Cyrus Allen making insane catches. Patrick Mahomes is targeting him when he's double covered. So they're just giving him the opportunities to go out there and show what he's got. And I think he's the best route runner on this Kansas City Chiefs team. We saw him in Mobile just absolutely routing guys up, losing them in one-on-ones. He looked fantastic when we were in the scrimmages. And just when you're watching him run these drills, like there's drills where he's running around the barrels and he's having to like catch balls as he runs around barrels. He looked like the best wide receiver there. Great position at the catch point with his hands. I think there's the chance that this could be a breakout. And if you're getting him, like, I think I'd start targeting him like round 12, just to make sure you have the opportunity to have this guy catching balls from Pat Mahomes. I love Cyrus Allen. I mean, if you were at the Senior Bowl, you just kind of fell in love with the kid. Fantastic human. We talked to him and he said that he models his game after Devontae Adams and Keenan Allen. And I think it shows up on the tape. He's fantastic against press, gets off the line quickly, beats his defender early in the route. This is a guy you're going to want on your rosters. Make sure you're getting him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. He's already sitting at wide receiver 4 on their depth chart. He's pretty much a lock at this point to make the team unless he does something stupid in Kansas City wide receiver fashion. Right now we've got Tyquan Thornton, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice ahead of him. I think he jumps Tyquan Thornton before the season starts, and I could see a world where he's getting more work than Xavier Worthy, because I think Xavier Worthy is extremely overrated, and we've had 2 seasons to prove that I'm right, and I think I'm right. This season will prove it when Cyrus Allen jumps him to be the wide receiver 2, and I think there's a world in which by his 3rd season, like we're talking 2028, Cyrus Allen is the wide receiver in Kansas City on a very good Kansas City team. He's that good. We saw it with our own damn eyes, man. So believe it. All right, after that Cyrus Allen pick, we had Jamari Taylor at 10-7, which we will come back to. Jalen Hurts at 10-08, Bo Nix at 10-9, and Michael Pittman at 10-10. Jamari Taylor's getting some buzz, and I love it. Cam, he's somebody that you and I loved in Mobile. We were excited to see him before we even got to Mobile. Mike, do you think there's a world in which he's at least a 50-50 split with Bashal Tutin?
I do not. I love Jamari Taylor. I loved watching all the film out of Virginia. Really, really good running back. I think it's a competitive room where they genuinely like all of these guys, including Taylor, but I think they're gonna lean towards the seniority on the team. LaQuint Allen is a very similar player to Taylor. And then they've also got Chris Rodriguez who can play that kind of tough game as well. And then Tutin is obviously the burner of the group. They're the veterans in the room, and I think they're going to get the first crack over Taylor. Just love watching the guy. His film out of Virginia is great. He's got fantastic contact balance. He can really move. He has fun movement and great vision too. If he would have landed elsewhere, if he was on this Vikings team, I think he could make a case to be the lead back. But unfortunately, I think the landing spot kind of ruins it. But as long as I saw Cyrus Allen coming off the board, I kind of wanted to make sure I grabbed my Senior Bowl guy too. On Cyrus Allen, I'm fully in with Cam. Now, Cam's steaming him up to round 12. That's a little spicy to me. I would say round 14, round 15, definitely be looking at Cyrus Allen. We talked about that Garrett Wilson highlight. Cyrus Allen made an amazing catch. I think it was in the preseason where this guy was like 30 inches off the ground easily, just fully extended. He looked so big on that play, came down with it, like kind of got brought down to the ground hard and held on to the ball. And I was able to see all these highlights because I follow Cam on Blue Sky. He is our Blue Sky NFL clip ambassador. True. So go follow White Heat FF for all of the clips of everything. It's great.
Quick on Jamari Taylor. The Jags came out and said that they had a 4th round grade on him too. But just the way that the board was falling and how running backs were being drafted, he went UDFA and then they made him a priority signing. So I think maybe not a 50-50 split, but he could definitely work himself into a good amount of touches if one of these other running backs were to go down and maybe end up winning that backfield by the end of the year. He's just a guy you put a pin on him. Make sure you're aware of some of these running backs so that during the season when waivers are running and you're trying to figure out who you want to grab, Jamari Taylor is one of those guys where if there's injuries in that running back room, he would be at the top of my list.
Like a Kamani Vidal narrative is what he needs. Like last year where Vidal, everybody forgot about him, but he's this kind of good scrappy player and there was enough injuries. Right. I was lucky to scoop him up and start him when he had that 30-point week or whatever it was, which was crazy. That was fun last year. So I could see Taylor getting into that kind of a situation this year.
I loved Vidal, the Senior Bowl when we saw him. Oh,
my brother.
He was amazing. He was incredible. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us with this draft. I want to thank everybody who tuned in and remind you that we do meet you where you are. You can find us on any platform. Pick your favorite. We'll be there. OptimusFantasy.com/find-us. That includes our Discord channel. If you had any questions from this show and we didn't get to them, make sure you drop them in Discord. Or if you're listening, you're watching back, you want to ask us about our drafts, hit us up on Discord, find us on Blue Sky. It's all right there. Guys, we got a couple of questions I want to clear through here in the chat before we get out of here. Frosty126 wants to know A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson. Cam, which one are you going with? In a vacuum, of course.
I still like Justin Jefferson. I think he's just elite in all aspects of the game. He's a top 5 wide receiver, and we're getting a discount on him after Max Brosmer and Carson Wentz and essentially rookie JJ
Josh
McCarthy
Dobbs.
threw him the ball for the majority of last season. I really like Kyler Murray. I know I had to run some sprints because I chose JJ McCarthy over him, but like Kyler Murray is a fantastic quarterback for Justin Jefferson to produce like a wide receiver one against this year. Now, AJ Brown looked fantastic at training camp. There's some great highlights of him beating Christian Gonzalez. So it's not like you're really like splitting hairs on the two, but if you had to pick one, I like Justin Jefferson.
Mike, what about you? Justin Jefferson as well?
I'm a Jettas guy, so I just
I
think
know
elite.
you are.
And also, AJ Brown kind of was dealing with a knee injury. There's talk that the Rams actually inquired to trade, but they ended up kind of avoiding the trade because of some questions with the knee. I think he's had to have it drained multiple times last season, from what I remember.
It's not good.
So I think that they're very comparable players at their best, but I think that JJ just has like the more prime years left in his career.
Oh, 100%. I still think Justin Jefferson's in a better situation than AJ Brown. Even though I don't love Jefferson as much as you guys do in this situation. Talent-wise, yes, he's one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the league. I hate Kyler Murray. Hate's too strong of a word. I don't like him in fantasy. Meatball 2026, our friend Mr. Michael Quincell. If Igbuka missed time, will Jalen McMillan be the wide receiver one while Igbuka is out? No, it's going to be Chris Godwin unless he's also hurt. And then at that point, we get Ted Hurst time, and I'm going to be ecstatic. Jimmy Parag's got a question on his draft. At the turn after Pittman in full PPR, who would you rather have? Manon Guy, Jordan Mason, or Rashad White? For me, it's Rashad White. Cam?
I think I want Manungai. Just a really high-powered offense where I think there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunities, but the injury does scare me a bit. So maybe just wait a little bit. I guess if we're having to draft someone right now today, yeah, I'm probably going with Rashad White there.
Mike?
I'm going Manungai. I like how the injuries too. We commented on it earlier of like, are they all even real? There was a comment right after the Manungai injury, which is also true with all of the injuries of like, oh, he's fine, right? Like, we don't know anything at this stage. This is like these next few weeks, you can't trust anybody, especially Kyle Shanahan. We cannot trust that man. But yeah, I'm Manungai.
All right. I'm with it. All right, the last one. I just wanted to throw this out. Shane telling me that my beard looks amazing. I feel like he's kissing up for some reason, but hey, I'll take it. I love to hear it. Oh, we got this here. Jamie saying, just realized I took Jayden Daniels, so I'd go Rashad White as well. It's a decent stack. Look, I don't think Rashad White's going to be like an RB1. I've got him at RB27, but I think he's a nice flex guy, and there will be weeks where he'll finish as a top 24 running back. I'm not saying I expect it, but I think it could happen. All right, folks. Well, again, go ahead, Cam.
I was just going to say, can we spend a little bit of time on the Washington Commanders running back room? I know we're trying to wrap this up, but,
I mean, we
JCM
can.
is getting hyped up. Katron
Yes, he
Allen
is.
looked really good in his preseason game. So did Robert Henry Jr. I just feel like this is such a messy situation. If you guys had to pick a guy that gets the most fantasy points this year, like, who are you taking?
Oh boy.
Rashad White for me, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, JCM's first on the depth chart, but I think it's good. Rashad White's the veteran. We know what he can do. He can catch the ball out of the backfield.
And
don't
a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And don't be like super surprised if we start hearing more and more about Katron Allen through the first like 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season too. I just don't think JCM's anything more than a Jag. I just really don't. Like, I love the nickname. I love that we call him Bill. That's fun. And I love hyphenated names. And same thing with Jeremy McNichols. Like, he's just a guy. Whereas Katron Allen could be something special. We saw him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. We talked to him in Mobile. The kid's got a lot of drive. So, yeah, it's an interesting running back room, though, for sure. Katron Allen's a guy that I'm taking really super late in drafts. Like, if you've got like 20 rounds and you're filling like 10 bench spots, take a guy like Katron Allen. If he pops, you never know.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, folks, we are going to finally get out of here. I want to thank everyone for joining us for Mock Draft Monday, for Mike's last Mock Draft Monday of the season. Next week, Keith Fleming will be joining me, and then for our final Mock Draft Monday, we will be joined by Mr. Mike Stoyanov as my guest co-host to round out the year. And then, guys, we're going to be drafting real teams and setting real lineups. It's almost here. I know. It's been a long offseason. I think we're all ready for it. So, all right, folks. Well, for Cam White and Mike Vadala, I am Nate Polvogt. I will see you next week with Keith Fleming. Everyone go wish Cam a happy wedding because we all hope that it's a great time. We'll see you next week, folks. Adios.